Sharlene Makin, welcome to Over the Bonnet.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
You're an athlete from years gone by. Like most of us, you're suffering a few injuries and that sort of thing. How are you dealing with getting older?
Firstly, I want to correct you there. I was never what you'd call an athlete. I played netball, played basketball, and I did a lot of water skiing. So getting old, it's starting to catch up with me, the injuries that I had with netball and basketball. But I guess we just need to be really thankful for technology and what our surgeons can do. So, yeah, knee replacement end of this month, and I'm hoping then I'll be a new woman.
You were talking about the knee replacement now, the technology that they're dealing with these days, it seems to be getting better. What is happening, what you've described to me? So
I can't have MRIs because I've got bilateral cochlear implants, so an MRI could possibly kill me. So they did a CT scan, and from that CT scan gets uploaded to Belgium, where they make the part especially for me and my problem. And then that's the picture my surgeon gets. He gets the part, he knows where to cut. He said, it's a piece of cake, it's easy. So let's hope that's true.
Does it worry you to those sorts of things? You've obviously had with the cochlear implants, you've had a little bit of surgical trauma. Does getting the other parts of the body, does that worry you? Or
no, everything's been good for me. So I'm just hoping for the positives now. And my husband's had 2 knee replacements, been the best thing he ever did. So I'm hoping for, similar results. And the surgery for the cochlear implant has been absolutely life-changing.
Let's talk about growing up not being able to hear. When did you first know that you couldn't hear or know that things were different for you?
Okay, so the bad gene that runs in my mother's family was diagnosed in me when I was about 6. But I could hear perfectly well as far as I was concerned anyway. Obviously, I was missing some high tones because that's how they picked it up. And, back in those days, that was the nurse who came around to the school. That's how they tested all these things. And so I think I started to first notice it. I used to say year 12, which was 16, but really when I look back, it was about year 10, 14, and there would be like a group of us girls in the playground, all having a chat, and everyone would be laughing, and I'd be thinking, I don't actually know what they're laughing about. So I was starting to miss things. And in year 12, certainly there was one particular teacher I couldn't hear. So it was my classmates that got me through that chemistry class and made me pass, helped me pass. So then, as an older teenager, early 20s, and certainly late 20s, that's when it became really, really difficult because I am a very social person. And it was really isolating. So I could hear, but I couldn't understand as I just lost more and more and more of the high tones, which are the consonants. So I could hear all the vowels, I could hear the door banging, I could hear the cars going by or all the background noise, but I couldn't understand any speech. So it was really isolating, and lip reading is incredibly draining, and it takes just so much effort.
Do you do some of that?
I still do, yes. I've lost some of the skill of it, I think. I was a better lip reader before the cochlear implants, but I absolutely revert to lip reading quite often. Yeah, so I just was thinking about then, well, that's it, I'm going to be deaf. I'm going to be like my mother and aunties and uncles and cousins and, older siblings. That's it, I'm just going to be deaf. And I was really struggling with that for a while. And I certainly lost all my confidence with my work. And so the cochlear implants have absolutely changed my life. It's an amazing invention.
So it was something that sort of slowly crept up on you.
Yep.
And you said it affected your confidence. Was it just a social thing or was it right across the board?
Everything. So social for sure. I come from a small country town in South Australia and everyone knew my problem. So it didn't, I guess, affect my confidence so much there. It affected my ability to have fun because, go to a restaurant, everyone's laughing and chatting, and basically I'd just be kind of sitting there. And if the person next to me wasn't having a conversation with me, I've missed everything. So it was that it didn't affect my confidence so much in that until I moved to Gympie, when nobody knew me. Then it certainly affected my confidence, and it absolutely affected my confidence with my work. So in this...
What were you doing at this stage?
When I moved from border town in South Australia, I was working for a transport company, pretty much doing everything in admin and helping to improve that business and professionalise it. So everyone knew my limitations, but they also knew what I could do. So it was easy for me because I said, no, I can't do that, but okay, well, you do this. So moving to Gympie, then I just lost all my confidence with working, and I thought, nobody knows my value, and trying to put that in a resume was a bit hard. But anyway, I didn't want to work when we first moved here because I just wanted to be settling my children in. And so, but then I eventually thought I could just do some accounting work. I don't need to hear. So I did that, and then I just did like payroll and creditors. Again, I didn't need to hear. And so it was at that job that I got the first cochlear implant, and life became like it used to be again when I was younger and a bit more of a go-getter, and so which led to my job at Roadcraft.
We'll get onto that in a minute, but I really want to explore the whole cochlear implant. So talk us through the process when you actually started to find out that it might work for you.
Yeah, it was really, really exciting. So my mother had one, and I knew it had been fantastic for her. And then my older sister, who's 10 years older, she got hers, and of course she was 10 years deafer. And when my mother got hers, you had to be completely deaf, and, things changed. So my sister contacted me, she was still in South Australia, and said, I think they might put a cochlear implant in you now. And
so what percentage of hearing did you have? If someone rated, like they rate blindness or...
Yeah, so they don't tend to use percentages so much with hearing. It's more about what loss you've got in what range. So for us, and the problem that we have is we lose the high tones. So my high tones were nothing. I couldn't hear anything in the high tones. And we have to remember that hearing aids only amplify. So timesing anything by 0 is still 0. That's why hearing aids probably aren't really what they're cracked up to be for my problem. So hearing aids at that point weren't helping me, and at a $12,000 gap after your private health, it wasn't something I thought, I'm not doing it. So I had nothing to help me. And so, yes, she said, look, a cochlear implant, they might do that now. The first tests I did, they said, no, you're not deaf enough. So me being me, I didn't accept that.
Yeah, how did you feel?
I wrote a letter explaining how life is very different to the hearing test they do in a soundproof room. And I understand why they have to, because it has to be uniform. But that's not life. And so I wrote about life and the limitations that I had in my work and my day-to-day things, and, not being able to use the phone, all those sort of things. So anyway, so they actually come back and said, we will do a cochlear implant. So it involved surgery, overnight hospital stay, where the surgeon actually cuts just behind the ear and do a concave in your skull, and they put the implant, which is basically up here, and then 22 electrodes wind through the cochlea, and they're like the nerves that send the message to the brain. So at that stage you can't hear, so they need to let the wound heal, swelling go down, and so 3 weeks after that, well, it was back then, we have what we call switch on, which is different to turned on. That's a different thing. So this is switch on, okay? And so we go back to Brisbane, and that's when we get this, what they call the processor. So, and that is the point where you can hear, but you can't hear properly, like I'm hearing now. So it's a process, very much a process. So because I couldn't hear high tones for so long, my brain had forgotten how to accept those sounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when I was first switched on, I described it as hundreds of thousands of birds chirping and squawking and squeaking all at once. So it was just like my brain was going, oh, high tone, high tone, high tone, and didn't know how to filter that.
So an overload.
Yeah, but it wasn't annoying. It was unbelievable that it wasn't annoying. So anyway, so what happened then is maybe, and then I had to go to Brisbane for one day a week for 6 weeks where they keep fine-tuning it, which they call mapping. And so, and in the meantime, my brain is getting more accepting of it. So, yeah, that's the process. So in about maybe 3 days, the birds chirping, which was constant, turned into birds only chirping in time with speech. And then what happened after maybe a couple of weeks is that chirping turned into syllables. So then I was actually hearing syllables that people speak. So
how did that feel?
Oh, it was amazing. So things like my kids still lived at home then, and so I walked into the kitchen and I'm sort of going, I'm looking around. I said, "Is that the microwave beeping?" I said, "Yes, Mum, that's the microwave beeping." I'm like, "Oh my God." I haven't heard the microwave beep for 20 years. And then yes, things like I walked down to the reception at work, and I just stopped dead. And there was all these people in reception, and I just stopped dead, must look like a complete idiot. And I turned to the receptionist and said, "Is that the alarms going off?" She said, "Yes." And I remember the last time the alarms went off at work, a colleague was coming to me like, "The alarms are going off." And I said, "Well, I can't hear the alarms." So I heard the alarms again for the first time, and things like crickets chirping, and and you have to almost be trained as to what that is again. So I'd say to the kids, "Oh, what's that noise?" "Well, that's a bird chirping." "Oh, okay." And then somewhere else I'd say, "Oh, what's that noise?" And they said, "Well, that's a baby crying." "Oh, okay." And so a baby crying in another room. Yeah, so you'd have to kind of like retrain. Okay, right. Now I sort of know how that sounds through a cochlear implant. So now I can,
because you've actually had hearing, and so you understood what things sounded like. How would you compare normal hearing to, say, what the cochlear implant can provide?
So once I was completely used to the implant, and my brain had done all the training that it needs to do, and it's very much, there's a lot of psychology in it, like you need to be prepared to accept the changes and go through that learning curve. Things like my husband's voice sound exactly the same as when I could hear his voice before. So, and music was one thing. With only one side done, everyone had said to me that music should be fine, and it was. And then so I got the first side done 11 years ago, and then 5 years ago I got the second side done because I just said I can't hear anymore. And the audiologist explained that that's because there's nothing left in this ear. She said even though it only had low tones before, it was helping this side to work. So she said, now you need the second side done. I said, like, do it, just do it. So we did that. She did warn me. She said many people with bilateral then don't enjoy music anymore. So I love music. It sounds exactly the same, but only music played like in the car or on speakers or something. Live music, I actually struggle to work out what the song is. And I'll say to my husband, "Do I know this song?" He says, yeah. It's, and so, okay, right, it's good. Then I can get it. But sometimes I just can't recognise, a song from when I was a teenager. It's being played, but I can't recognise it.
What do you put that down to, that you can't really decipher that live sound?
I can't pinpoint what it is. And And the audiologist would probably have an answer to that. But what I do know is a lot of cochlear implantees will have a lot of different experiences, and individual experiences will be different. So someone else will tell you, oh no, live music's fine for me, I don't like the other music. So it's a bit strange that, it just depends on your situation, I think.
What were your feelings when you started to lose the ability to listen to music if it was pretty big in your life? How did you feel?
Oh, it was awful, just awful. And I used to think, how am I going to be able to live my life without music? And it was really depressing. So music was huge to me, and I like to dance. So my young days back in Bordertown in South Australia, we had the pub called the Woolshed Inn, and they had amazing bands and always fantastic entertainment. And that was my husband and I, that was our young days, dancing and drinking at the Woolly all night, and it was just the best place to be. Loved it, yeah. So I just thought, I can't even imagine my life without music, and especially driving long trips. So driving for work or driving to Brisbane or something. And, I had to do that in the end without music. It's incredibly boring. So it was hard. Yeah.
What about driving? Did it affect your driving, your ability to, when you're losing your hearing and you can't hear other cars? Is there a safety factor there?
I don't believe so for me, because I was just really aware that your vision had to be better, and really that's every driver. So that's when we get to the roadcraft stuff, we can talk about that. Most drivers don't use their vision effectively. So I was probably doing that even before I learnt to do that at roadcraft, because I had to. So things like scanning in the mirror, I was just doing that all the time, because I can't hear like an ambulance siren. So I knew I had to be very visually aware. So I probably had better vision than most, which probably in some ways made me a safer driver, because most people just are really complacent and blasé in the car, and they shouldn't be.
You were talking about you had to become a better visual driver, but did other senses, as your hearing started to decline, step up?
I think my sense of smell certainly has. I can't stand to be within 40 foot of a smoker. I just can't do it. So other people say, oh, it's just smoking. I think it's killing me. So I have a really strong sense of smell. I notice, I don't know, like other people, say if you're in the supermarket or something and I walk past someone who hasn't had a shower for a few days, I'm like, oh, physically. And I notice other people don't do that. So I think my sense of smell, but not that it doesn't really helpful, I don't think. So I mean, a blind person, when they get better hearing, it helps them. So sense of smell hasn't really helped me. It's just annoying, I think. That's just people with BO and that I can't cope. Smoking, I can't cope.
When you were starting to lose the hearing, you knew it's because it's a family thing. What was the main thing that you were upset about, the fact that you might not be able to hear again?
It was definitely social and music, and that was my whole young life. Being really, really social and, having a great night out, dancing all night to music. That was the biggest thing for me, but probably when it happened, it was also my work. So I knew what I was capable of in my work, but I lost all confidence. I just thought I can't do those sort of PR type jobs that I loved. I'm going to have to do the boring stuff like accounting.
It is a good thing to grow up in a country town when people do know you've got this thing that you're dealing with, and it's like the old Crocodile Dundee. You tell Wal tells everyone, then there's no problem.
Yes.
How good was it growing up in a country town?
So it was absolutely fantastic. So I grew up in a place, the area is called the Tatiara, which is Aboriginal for the good country, and also mean the good people. So the people of the Tatiara are some of the best people you'll find on this earth, and we miss them incredibly. So the great thing there was just these true friendships that are lifelong, and you don't have to live in each other's pocket or ring each other every second day, but when we catch up again, we pick up where we left off. So that's the greatest thing about a country town is that sense of community. And my kids now live in the city, and they said they hate that anonymity. They miss a sense of community that you don't get in the city. And the other great thing about a country town is when something goes wrong, the whole community just band together and get behind whoever needs support, which I guess you don't get so much in the city either. So, but there was one thing sadly lacking in the country, and that was anybody to teach us to sign. So we had a lot of deaf people in my family, and none of us sign. And that's one of the big misconceptions that people have about deaf people. They just assume they sign, and many of us don't. And in the country, I guess in the city, if you sign, you're deaf and you sign, there are deaf communities, and they tend to stick together, and they do things together, and they communicate well because they all sign. So in the country, even if my family had have learnt to sign, we could have just communicated with each other. There's no one else. So in the country, probably it's better that you learn to lip read, because then you can communicate with everybody, which is quite different to deaf people in the city.
Talk about learning to lip read. Is it something that was self-taught?
Yeah, so one of the visits to the audiologist, because there's many in our life, she said, you're really going to have to learn to lip read. And I said, how do I do that? She said, you're already doing it. And I said, no, I'm not. And so she had a blank A4 piece of paper, and she put the piece of paper in front of her face, and she kept talking, and I was like, put the paper down. And she said, you are already lip reading, you just don't know you are. So it is really honestly a self-taught thing, and as you gradually lose your hearing, you just rely on it more and more. But you can probably really only read 30% of speech on the lips. So the rest is like
mannerisms.
Yes. So if someone's got dark glasses on, you always ask them to take their glasses off when they don't understand. How is that helping you? So because there's so much you read in someone's eyes, and body language and mannerisms, because you're always second guessing. So if you think maybe that person just said my mum died, and you're looking at their body language, you think, I know that's not what you said, unless you really hate your mum. So that you're getting clues from everywhere. And I've likened it to doing a crossword puzzle constantly, but at this rate of knots. So you've got a few clues, you've got a few vowels in the middle, you've got a bit of context about what they might be talking about, but you're trying to put all the other letters in there, but at this rate of knots. So that's the best way to describe lip reading, and it's that draining.
Which is why the intense concentration...
It is really, really draining. So you're doing everything else that everyone else does as well, with their thinking and their working and their plus your lip reading. So it used to be some strategies that I used to use. Maybe, say, if you're in a social environment, just go to the ladies, sit on the loo, lock the door, take your hearing aids out, and just sit there and breathe. You needed to do those sort of things just to arm you with what you needed for now. Go out and do it again. Yeah, but because my friends were so amazing, and my family, I understanding, of course, you could just say, no, stop, I've had enough, I can't do this anymore. That's okay, and stop talking to me, I can't do this anymore. Yeah, so that's what I knew. I was just going to be missing that so much.
How are your kids with, as you said, the kids sort of says, you can hear the microwave, and must have been just as big for them as it was for you?
Yeah, so one thing about, and this is me as well, being brought up by a deaf parent, or a parent who's going deaf, it makes kids really resilient. It makes them very responsible. It makes them think of other people, and they can do things very young that other kids don't do. So I remember doing this for my mother. Like she'd say, you have to make this phone call for me, because Dad was self-employed, so he'd be at work and she needed to do something for his business. You have to make this phone call for me on my behalf. So I'd be like, ring this person, explain who you are, explain why I can't ring, and we need to sort this out with, I don't know, the registration of the truck or something like that. So very young, we were doing those sorts of things for mum, and you'd be like on the phone, go, okay, just wait, hang on, and then I would say it so mum could lip read, okay, right now ask them this. So then that process was repeated with my kids. So very, very young, like from 4. I can remember my kids answering the phone, you know, hello, this is Tyler speaking. No, you can't speak to mum. My mum is hearing impaired, which I was then. I wasn't actually deaf, I was hearing impaired. She can't use the phone, but I can tell her what you need. So at very, very young, they were doing those sorts of things. So it's actually a good thing in some ways. And I remember a younger daughter, she did a speaking competition, and the adjudicator, he said to her afterwards, I cannot pinpoint it. What is it about you? Why do you speak so well? And he just said, I'm trying to work it out. What is it? I'm trying to guess. He said, no, I can't guess. And she said, oh, my mum is hearing impaired. He said, oh, that makes lots of sense. So my children definitely always, as little kids, they would stop what they were doing, keep their head still, look at the person they were talking to. There was no running around sort of speaking down to their boots. They really engaged with people, even as really young kids. But the greatest thing is my 2 daughters didn't inherit the gene. So they've got perfect hearing.
When did you know about that?
We kept getting them tested all the time. So quite young. And I thought, well, technology, way back then, they worked at that when I was 6. So, quite young, we were getting pretty favourable results and thinking, oh, maybe. And then, so with the older one, we were pretty certain, you know, by a certain age, she's good. And then the younger one got good tests as well. And then when she was about 13, I really panicked and I thought, oh my God, she's got it. There's something wrong with those other tests, because she, her father at the time was doing Jim's mowing. He was the Jim's mowing man. And he had said to me, school holidays, that I need the kids to come and help me with this job, so you'll have to drop them off. I said, that's fine. So he rang and they were on the phone, of course, not me. And the younger daughter, she was saying, you have to take me to Ophel Street. And I said, that's not the street. There's no street called Ophel. It sounds like awful. No one calls street that. No, I ask it again. No, Mum, he's definitely saying Ophel. I said, that can't be right. She said, hang on. Mum, it's Ophel, definitely. So 3 times she heard Ophel. So I said, that cannot be the right street. So my older daughter got on the phone and she said, no, it's Opal Street. Now, P and F are high tones. So I freaked. I panicked and I thought, oh my God, I don't know why all those other tests were fine, but I think she's got it. And I was distraught. Because I can imagine. I don't want this in my kids. Anyway, so I took her back for another test and I told the audiologist all about my history and, and this is probably the first test we had in Gympie. So I told her about that and, why I was concerned. So she came out of the room after the testing, like pumping the air. This audiologist was so happy. And she said, she's fine. She's absolutely fine. And I said, well, why can't you hear that? And she said, it can take 20 years for a normal person's hearing to develop properly. She said, that's very normal for a 13-year-old. So maybe sometimes when we're saying that teenagers aren't listening, maybe that's normal and then hearing development is not great. I don't know, but she's fine, yeah.
Did you at any time consider not having children because you might pass it on?
We didn't consider not having them, but we certainly looked into it. So we went to a geneticist, my husband and I, when we were sort of thinking about starting a family. And basically he said it's a 50-50 chance. So I got my mother's bad gene comes from her mother. So she's got one good gene from her father and a bad one from her mother. My father had 2 good genes in hearing. So when I was conceived, I get one of dad's, which is good, and one of mum's. So that can be her mum's or her dad's. So I happened to get her mum's, which is the bad one, which is the 50-50 chance. And so that's how he explained it to us. So he said, if you don't want deaf kids, don't have them. It's that simple. So when we looked at what deaf means to us is we have our hearing during all our learning years. It did become difficult in year 12 for sure. And then I didn't go to uni, so I would have struggled at uni, I think, but I didn't go to uni. So year 12 I was definitely struggling to learn, but had lots of support and, did well in my year 12 exams and stuff. So we just thought, look, well, okay, well, it's been fine for me. And we didn't actually even consider then what could technology do. We didn't even think about that. But we decided, yes, we'll have kids. And it just so happens that, well, my husband pumps his chest out and thinks he said he just needed a decent bull in the family. And I said, they actually got nothing to do with that. So he's got our kids have got a gene from him. He's got two good ones. They happen to both get my father's gene, not my mother's. So it's just luck of the draw. But my sister's got 4 kids. I've got 2. So out of the 6 kids, 3 have got it. So it's a 50-50 chance.
Genetic roulette.
Yeah, but what's great now is my kids' won't have it. So it won't throw back. It's out of our line, basically.
How far back does it go? You said your mother have it. Did your grandmother have it?
Yes, and before that I don't really know, but apparently my grandmother was a bit different. So she was like totally deaf by 9. So I would guess that my mother might have been totally deaf. Like the whole time my husband's known her, she's been deaf. So she might have been totally deaf by 40. And so I was totally deaf by about 50. So it sort of seems to be getting a bit better somehow. I don't know. And my cousin, he's 63 and he's needed a cochlear implant forever and just kept saying, I'm not doing it. Well, he's just had it. So I don't know whether he's perhaps not as bad as me for some reason. I'm not sure. So, So everyone's a bit different.
What's it like going on the table when you're being wheeled in? You know that this is technology that you're not real sure of. How did you feel?
To be honest, I purposely didn't do the research because I'm into natural therapies a lot. We have a long history of natural therapies and trying to go drug-free, serving us a lot better than just go to the doctor, get the script and put a Band-Aid over the problems and stop the symptoms rather than treat the cause of the problem. So, and I'm very aware of things that cause cancer, and we try and sort of steer clear of those if we can. So having stuff stuck in your head, it did concern me a bit, and I purposely didn't do the research. I thought, I'm not going there. So I don't know. My mother's had hers for a long time and she was fine. So yeah, I'm pretty certain now that it's not harmful at all. Yeah.
When you're being wheeled in though, when you're obviously with a little bit alternate sort of views, were you nervous? Were you having second thoughts?
No, when I look at when I say we're into alternative things, we're into what is best for the situation at the time. So obviously, to me, if you've got some sort of chronic fatigue type problem, my experience is doctors and drug companies don't really know what the answer is. A naturopath will get to the cause of the problem and can fix you. If you've fallen off your horse and broken your leg, get to the hospital and go to the doctor. So we need everybody, and we need everybody to be playing their part. What's missing in this country, which is an absolute shame, is some of them refuse to work together. So if they all work together, the health system in this country could be amazing. And if we stopped just going to the drug companies as our first option, so for us in our family, that's our last option. Certainly we do it if we have to, but I'll be taking painkillers when I have this knee op. Yeah, so I just try and do the best with the situation at the time. And the cochlear implants were the best thing for me and still are.
So you went for the second one after the first. How did that all figure and what happened then?
Yeah, so I just went back to my audiologist, and I need to give a plug to the good people at the Mater Hospital Cochlear Implant Clinic. They are beyond amazing. They just care so much. You're much more than just a patient to them. They are absolutely fabulous, all of them. I just went back to her and I said, it's not working anymore. I can't hear. So, yeah. And then she said, I think I know why. Let me do some tests, which is, so there's nothing left in the right at all. You're completely deaf, which was, when I was 48. So when I say about 50, so it was just like, book it in. So I went back to my surgeon, who's also amazing, and just book it in, just do it. But I don't know whether... I don't know who's going to be hearing this and who might be considering a cochlear implant, but I do need to say that it wasn't all smooth sailing for me. So with the first side, I got an infection, which is incredibly rare. Certainly wasn't the surgeon or the hospital's fault or anything, but to fix it, it was tough. It was really hard. So I didn't realise at the time, but I certainly am very knowledgeable now. Antibiotics only fix a very basic staph infection on human tissue. And if it's on the foreign body, it won't fix it. So, I got a staph infection on the foreign body. And I have a theory now, which my surgeon and the infectious diseases specialist that he referred me to agree with, in that I did have a flaky scalp, and it's caused from, I can only use certain hair colours, so I'd had a reaction to these hair colours. So when you fill out all the forms, do you have a rash? It was like, no, because I didn't think about the flaky scalp, and there wasn't a question about that. So my theory is that a little bit of my own flaky skin got in there when he was putting it in.
Wow.
Yeah, so the infectious diseases guy, who was again amazing, explained to me that this staph that you've got, if you had a whole heap of people in a room and you tested them all, I can't remember, I think it was like 1 in 3 or something would have it, and it's no drama until you cut your finger or something gets in there, it gets an infection, have antibiotics, you're better. He said if I had 20 people in a room, all with some sort of dermatitis or eczema, 1 in 1 would have this on their skin. I went, so would a flaky scalp be considered? He said, that exactly, yes. So I said, well, I think that's what caused it. So basically, instead of having 1 operation and 3 weeks later having switch on, I had 5 operations and 6 months to switch on and a second implant. And I can tell you, it's still worth it.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. So I told my surgeon at the time, and and how you judge someone, or you can judge someone not sometimes by just the amazing thing they do, but what they do when something goes wrong. And this surgeon, I couldn't have asked for any better care. He was just amazing. And he treated this problem like it was his fault. He was mortified. I'm his only infection ever. And it wasn't his fault, but he cared for me so well, and genuinely cared and genuinely wanted a good outcome for me, and was very, he tried really hard to save the implant. In the end, he couldn't, and he said, I'm going to have to give you a new implant.
What were your thoughts at that stage?
I basically said to him, I think I'm a pretty positive person, and I said to him, I think some stage in my life, I'm going to look back at this time in my life as a minor inconvenience. And that's honestly how I see it now. So, I would be in hospital in Brisbane on a drip, and then he would send me home with oral antibiotics. So he'd gone in again and he'd washed it all out. And he said, I can't see, unless it's behind the implant, and I don't want to dislodge the implant. So let's try this. And so they'd go home with oral antibiotics, and then it would start oozing again. So my husband would ring him, he'd say, right, go to pack a bag, I'll meet you at the hospital, bring her back to the hospital. So it was that sort of thing. And then, okay, I'll operate again, I'll do this. And in the end, he said, I can't save the implant. And I said, okay, right, well, before I was deaf and well, and now I'm deaf and I'm sick. So take the implant out, because, I might as well be deaf and well. and he said, and we can, if we can't do this side again, we'll do the other side. So his concern was that the 22 electrodes going through the cochlear, which is kind of shaped like a snail shell, so they wind through. And he said, if I take those out, there's going to be scar tissue, and then that we might not be able to re-implant. That was his main concern. So he talked to his friend, who was the infectious diseases guy, who again was just so wonderful in trying to find solutions for me. And he said, leave them in. So he said, let's do this in stages. So
you left the electrodes in the cochlea?
Yes. So he said, if we find the infections on the bit that's sort of up on the head, and then you treat that, you take that out, you treat that, and then if she doesn't get better, we'll know the infection's on the electrodes.
Right.
So so it was a fantastic idea, because he said as soon as he lifted up the bit that goes here, he could see the infection between my skull and that. So he said, right, that's good news, because now we'll get rid of that part and we'll treat the infection. And so what he did is he snipped all the electrodes, took this part out, snipped the electrodes, left them in. And so then I got better with the antibiotics. They worked, they did their job. And so he made me have a heap of blood tests and do all sorts of things to make absolutely certain. And so then, ready for re-implantation, my whole family had to use a nose cream, because he said staph breeds in the nose, so we were shoving cream up our nose. We had to wash, all of us, with this special stuff in the shower, and these blood tests all had to be clear like once a week for how many weeks. And then that is like, I know, we're going to do this again. And so I said to him, will my private health pay for another implant? And he said they have to. So okay, righto. So into surgery again. So this was now the 5th lot of surgery on the left side. And he said, I can't keep opening that same cut. And I said, it'd be like a facelift. Like he said, it's pulling tighter. And I have to be aware of all these things in a big long-term plan for you. So 5 was, he's saying that's kind of the limit. I think I can keep opening the same cut and closing it again. So he re-implanted, and he said he took one electrode out and put the new one in, so no scar tissue. So I had this amazing, wonderful help from this surgeon and this other guy from the medical profession, and in the whole time, the Mater Hospital cochlear implant clinic, where I had to do the switch on, they're just waiting for switch on, which is normally 3 weeks. So for me it was 6 months.
When you said you were not well, how did it affect you at that stage? Yeah,
so I was just really tired and just felt generally unwell, and where this part goes, when it was still in there, because I know now, because there was pus and infection behind it, it was spongy. So it should be hard, it should feel hard, and it was very spongy and a little bit just tender to touch. But I worked, and I kept the oral antibiotics up, and I worked, and I'd just be at work and just sort of touch, and I think, off to the toilet, wash my hands, and I'd say to someone, can you please ring my husband, because it's weeping again. I'm going to have to do something about this. So so it wasn't too bad, as far as I didn't feel sort of sick all the time or anything like that.
Your husband sounds pretty supportive.
Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, so now he's going deaf. So he's got industrial deafness. Yeah.
How important was it, the whole family and support, when you're going through this process of firstly losing your hearing and then getting the cochlear implant?
Yeah, so the family support, I think, is just more important while you're losing your hearing, because it can be so draining and so frustrating and so tiring that you can be a bit cranky to live with. Like, you can get just frustrated so easily. And say, for example, if you wanted to ask Mary something and she's in another room, you can just yell, "Hey Mary, what's?" and she will answer you, "Okay, no worries," and you keep working. That doesn't happen with a hearing impaired person. So you have to actually physically get up, tap them on the shoulder, get their attention, wait till they're looking at you. Okay, ask the question, and then I haven't got it, so put it in a different way so that I can lip read it, because you just can't lip read everything. Okay, got that, yep, good, no, go back out. Oh, hang on, I forgot to ask this. So back into that room, whole thing again. So, and for my kids, so they're, normally kids are running around, "Hey mum, can I have this for lunch?" Yeah, no worries. So for us, it was, they have to actually come get my attention. I've got to stop what I'm doing, because you can't just keep cutting the veggies or something. You have to stop. So you can't do two things at once, which then gets frustrating, and then you are tired and you're cranky and you haven't got everything done because everything takes longer. So you need incredible support from your family, because they could easily just throw their hands in and think, "Oh God, this is all too hard." So it's hard for everyone.
It obviously went the right way for you because you had plenty of support, but could it break a relationship up?
Absolutely. And I remember my brother-in-law, so my sister's husband, saying to my husband after she had hers, he said, "Oh my God, she's a different woman. Oh my God, life is so much easier." Yeah, so then the benefits of the cochlear implant also benefit everyone.
You talk about your private health. What do they cost?
I think it's back when I had mine, probably more now, but I don't know, it might be less because technology gets cheaper. So it was $28,500 each side. So for me, the gap was about $1,500, which is amazing.
How's the technology improving, as you've said, as they go on? Have you observed an improvement in the technology?
Yeah, so I haven't observed it so much yet, but it's coming. So there are new processors out, and now that mine are 5 years old, I can get new ones on my private health. So I have to wait for 5 years. So at the moment I have what we call a mini mic. So I strap a mini mic here, and when I go walking or something, and to stream the music, so I've got my phone on my arm, to stream the music from the phone to here, it's got to go through the mini mic. And then I can also use a mini mic. Like I could, if there was someone to talk to over there and here, they could be holding the mini mic and that sort of thing. So the new processors with I think it's about the iPhone 8 after that, and I've got an 8, no mini mic. So for to get music from my phone, it's straight to the processor. And that's because Apple and Cochlear did a lot of work together. And the other thing that's going to happen with the new processors is at the moment, before I can answer the phone, I've got to change the setting. So that's it, just Bluetooth picks it up. I don't do anything. So I'm really looking forward to that. But they're just having trouble getting them at the moment, same as everything with COVID. So I'm on the list to get these new processors, but I'm waiting for them to ring me to say they've got them.
Sound-wise, what will be the improvement for you, though, when you do get the new processors? Do you expect a big improvement?
I expect, from what they've said, better hearing in a noisy environment. So in a quiet environment like we've got here now, I often don't have to lip read. I can hear really well, and I could probably get away without even telling anyone that I have any hearing impairment at all, and they wouldn't even notice. But as soon as it's anything noisy, it's harder, and the phone is hard too. So if someone's on the Bluetooth or something in their car, it's really hard for me to hear. That is apparently where I'll experience the improvement.
What's the social stigma with deafness these days? Do you experience much of that?
I don't, because I have strategies. I think people who don't have strategies would, for sure, because this is the problem with deafness. And certainly for my deafness and the deafness that's in my family, because we learn to speak while we can hear, we don't have any speech impediment. So for me, what I learned by going to counselling sessions, which changed my life, not sort of counselling sessions, more like, it was like sessions on learning how to live with their hearing loss, and they were invaluable. So what she explained to me is you have the invisible disability. So the stigma would not be around the fact that she can't hear. No one cares that you can't hear. They want to help you. It's when they don't know you can't hear. So she said, if you don't tell people you can't hear, they don't know, and they think you're incredibly strange, because they think, why is she looking at my lips? Have I got Vegemite on my lips from toast this morning? And then when you get...
Do people notice that? Did you say, okay, I'm looking at your eyes? Do people notice that?
They do. And so that's why it's important to tell them why you're doing it. And the other thing she said is, you move in really close to people and you're looking at their lips more and you're moving closer. And she said, some people are going to think, what is she doing? Does she want to kiss me? So she said, you look really strange. And then she said, say, for example, sitting around a campfire, water skiing, camping, sitting around a campfire, it's dark, and everybody's laughing. And you're sitting there and you're not laughing. So people think you're snobby, aloof, no sense of humour. Like I introduced myself to her before, she's not speaking to me. She's not even part of this group. She doesn't even want to be here. And this lady said, none of these things are true. But that's how people perceive you if they don't know you're deaf. So what changed my life is learning from this. So the first thing I do when I meet anyone is I tell them I'm hearing impaired. And it changes everything. So then the other thing she explained was, so once people know, they want to help you. You could assume they know how to help you because you've known all your life how to help hearing impaired people. They don't. So you need to ask them. And she explained to me about the importance of passive, assertive, aggressive. So people with hearing loss who are passive just laugh and pretend they've heard. Aggressive people will get angry at you because you haven't helped me to hear and forget that you don't know how to help them hear. So assertive is, okay, Mark, I will need to read your lips. So if you can please just make sure that microphone is not in front of your lips. If you can keep your hands down away from your face for me, that really helps me. And by the way, you're sitting in front of a window, which is putting a shadow across your face. So could we possibly swap? That's assertive. So all of these are life skills that I learned at this series of sessions I went to, changed my life. And so now I always say to anyone, it doesn't matter what you can't do in life, tell people you can't do that. On your resume, tell them you can't do that. It doesn't mean you're not good at the job. It's just everyone's aware and now they can help you.
Is it hard to accept help?
Not as far as my hearing loss goes, because I can't cope without it. I can't do without people's help. So I need to communicate. I need that help. I need to communicate how I need that help. And then I need to remind people, because it doesn't matter how many times you tell some people, please don't put your hands in front of your mouth. They will. And I can't cope without that help. It's really hard for me to ask for help in all other aspects of my life, though. Yeah, I find that difficult.
The second cochlear implant that you did have, so how did it go? You had a lot of problems with the first one that ended up going okay. How did the second one go?
Yeah, so the second one, my surgeon was like, oh, God, not you again. Oh, God. I was like... And he keeps saying to me that this one grey hair that he has, that's you, that's yours. I've got a name for that. It's called Sharlene. So he said, right, for the second one, so we put a lot of things in place beforehand. So we had to again, do the nose cream and the special wash, and no flaky scalp, and so we just was a lot more careful. But like he said to me, he didn't do anything different when he did the surgery for this one. It's just one of those things. So I was really confident that it all will go well this time, and it did. So one surgery, 3 weeks later, switch on, done. Yeah.
How's the hearing these days then? You've got 2 cochlear implants and hopefully very shortly better processors, but how's the hearing these days?
Yeah, so I would, like I said, sometimes I don't even have to tell people. I do, but they say to me afterwards, I would never have known. And I said, well, that's because these hear so well. So I'm in lots of situations and lots of times during the day, I completely forget that I'm deaf. It's only when I get into a group situation, a restaurant is hopeless. I'm very much reminded that I'm very hearing impaired in a restaurant situation, and all restaurateurs need to, please, I'm begging you, all restaurateurs, are you listening? Can you put some acoustic ceilings or acoustic things in your restaurants, because it's really hard for everyone, not just hearing impaired people, to just relax and have a nice time because it's so noisy. Certainly on the phone, I feel deaf, but sometimes on the phone, if everything's perfect, I can have a half-hour conversation on the phone and not miss a thing. So it just depends on the situation. So the hearing can be pretty close to perfect. And where hearing aids are only multiplying, so if you haven't got those high tones, timesing anything by 0 is still 0. So all it's doing is amplifying the low tones, which are the background noise. So they're a bit useless like that. The cochlear implant gives you those tones back. Yeah, so it's incredible. It's amazing. So Professor Graham Clark, an Australian, is my superhero. He wears a cape as far as I'm concerned. Amazing man, done amazing work. And his father was deaf, so he set about trying to work out how can I help deaf people.
Do you ever turn them off?
Yeah. So to have a shower, so they come off. To sleep, they come off. So, which is a great thing, because people say, "Oh, did you hear that motorbike at 4 o'clock in the morning?" I said, no, I didn't. I slept. So that's a good thing. But yeah, that means I need a vibrating alarm clock. We need smoke alarms in our house. We have other ones for me that vibrate, that same vibrator under my pillow to wake me up. But yeah, it's actually a good thing that you can turn them off. So obviously, safety-wise, if I'm in the shower or something, Trevor's fallen over and broken his leg and he's yelling at me, it's not going to work very well for us. But I'll get out eventually and put them back on. And things like water skiing, like if I'm doing something really slow, I just there's a waterproof thing you can put on it, and so I wear them. Or if I'm, back when I was fitter, slalom skiing or barefooting, I don't bother to wear them then. I just take them out and do that deaf, because, you fall quite hard and they're hooked to your togs, but you're trying to get them back on with your gloves and all that, so it's just easier to do that deaf. So
when you've had hearing impairment, have there been any big faux pas moments when you say you haven't really understood what's been going on, where you go, oops?
Yeah, I think there's been heaps, but not I can't remember any specifically. But there are times when, the kids have laughed and, no, you've got that completely wrong. And so I'm sure there's been heaps, which is why it's important people know. Because they think you're some strange cat, honestly, if they don't know. And it really is. Like, I went through a long time in my life where I didn't have hearing aids because they just didn't help, and they were so expensive. And I could speak, so there wasn't even a hearing aid there for people to give people a clue. So it's pretty important that they know, so when you do those faux pas, they understand.
With the cochlea, which is also the balance area of your brain or your head or the body, did it affect your balance playing with the cochlea, or did you have balance problems?
No, so some people with hearing impairment have some vertigo problems, and they have tinnitus as well can be associated. So no vertigo for us or anyone else in my family. Never been affected with that at all. The tinnitus was a slight for me, but it used to the ringing would get really intense. But at the point I was about to fall asleep, so it didn't actually matter because you knew sleep is coming and then it would stop. But cochlear implants help tinnitus. I don't really have any knowledge on the vertigo, how it all goes with that. If you're already suffering from that, I'm not sure. But not an issue for us.
From here, it's basically an ongoing management thing that you have, than just keeping abreast of what's going on?
Yeah, so from here, it should be about once every 12 months, but COVID sort of upset that a bit. Is I go back and I have another, what they call mapping. So doing some adjustments, some fine tuning to make sure it's working at its optimal level for me and for what I need.
Do you find that some people, like you said, tell people straight up and be a little bit assertive? Do people try and hide it?
Yeah. And it doesn't serve them well. Too many people try and hide it. So, like for example, when I moved to Gympie, and then I settled my kids into a new town, new state, and then I got bored, so I wanted to work again. And I put my resume around to, like I said, accountants, because I thought, well, I can do accounting work, deaf. On my cover letter, it opened with, I am severely hearing impaired. It is the best thing you can do. Don't try and hide it. It doesn't serve you well, doesn't serve anyone else well. And I say that with anyone I'm interviewing now for a job, tell me what you can't do. That's not a bad thing. It just gives me the knowledge I need. How do I support you, and where do you best fit in the team? Because we don't all need the same strengths. A team works better if we have different strengths, and different skills, but the same mindset.
You were talking about how you loved it at Bordertown. You moved to Gympie and you were settling in there. Why did you leave?
So there were lots of reasons why we left. So basically, one of the first reasons was education for our girls who are really bright. So Bordertown High School for me was an amazing school, and I felt I got a private education at public cost, but it's the only option in Bordertown. So Bordertown High School wasn't getting a great reputation, as my girls were getting higher up in primary school, and everyone was sort of telling me, oh, your girls will cope. They're bright, they'll cope. And I got a bit sick of that word cope, to be honest. I thought if they have the ability to excel, then maybe we should put them in an environment where they're encouraged to do that. So the other option for us was private boarding school in Adelaide, which many of our friends opted for. We couldn't afford it, and it was $12,000 a term per child.
Yikes.
Yeah. So that wasn't an option for us, and it's not actually what we wanted either. We didn't want to send our girls away. So I got a bit worried about education. There was a time I remember the kids needed socks, and there was nowhere to buy socks in Bordertown. The supermarket didn't have any. So it's like, I don't know where to buy socks. And that was frustrating me more and more and more. So, I'd take a day off work during school holidays, take the kids to Mount Gambier, 2 hours away, and you'd go to the movies, go out for lunch, do a bit of shopping. So $400 later, you've got socks instead of just going and buying socks. So that was starting to frustrate me. My husband's sister, actually, she lived in Rockhampton. She was killed in a car crash. So when we came up to Rocky here for her funeral, they were saying that she lived here, she lived there, she lived somewhere else, she did this, she did that. And I got to thinking, oh, what are they going to say about me at my funeral? I've lived in Bordertown my whole life. Yeah, I'm a good wife, I'm a good mother, I'm a good employee, but that's it. That's it for me. That's all I've ever done. So I got to this thinking, I felt like we needed some adventure, maybe tying that adventure in with maybe good education. I don't know. So I actually, you get these feelings and then they go away. Well, it didn't go away. It just got stronger. We need to move. So I put this question to my husband. I said, hey, what do you think about maybe moving away from Bordertown for a while? And he said, oh, yeah, I'm open to that. And said, where do you want to move to? And I said, I want to go to Adelaide. And he said, I'm not going to Adelaide. Said, if we move, we're moving to Queensland. So then I thought, oh my God, what have I started?
Why Queensland?
Well, he has arthritis, and the cold down there was really starting to get to him. So he wanted a warmer climate. He said, if we're moving, I'm not putting up with this anymore. We're going to a warmer climate. Yeah, and I thought, that's too far away. That's too far away from family and friends. Anyway, so we came up here and we had a bit of a look around, and we also had a bit of a list of criteria that the place had to have. And Gympie ticked all the boxes. And so we decided that we would quietly we had a beautiful home, architecturally designed home, 11 acres. The kids rode their pushy to school, so it was really close to everything. It was fantastic. So I thought we'll just quietly tell the real estate agents about our house if someone is inquiring. And if the house sells, we're going. And if it doesn't sell, we're staying. So we basically left it in the lap of the gods. And within a week, our house was sold. So we treated it like an adventure, and 18 years later we're still here, and the kids got a great education. What I love about Gympie is there are really good options for education, both public and private, and I think there's a school that would suit most people. So, and our girls went to St. Pat's here and had got an amazing education at $3,000 a year per child, not $12,000 a term.
What other boxes did Gympie tick for you?
So obviously it needed to be close to Brisbane, because I was thinking at some stage I'll need cochlear implants. So places like Rockhampton, Cairns, just too far away. Cochlear implants might be available then, but they weren't then. It had to be a capital city. We wanted that warmer climate, but we also wanted seasons. So Cairns just hot all the time. So I don't think I could cope real well with never owning a jumper. I thought I want some seasons. I like, that change and wearing different clothes, that sort of thing. But we didn't want a long winter. We wanted it mainly warm. We wanted somewhere to water ski, and we do that just out of Tyro. And we wanted to be close to the beach, but not necessarily on it. We certainly didn't want to live at the Gold Coast or Sunshine Coast. Cannon Barbie's there, and we think it's a nice place to visit. But you wouldn't want to live there. So we are very much country people. So we wanted a town that was big enough to have those basic services, but still have a country feel. It had to have great rainfall, because we love our tank water. I can't drink anything. I also have to have tank water. What else was there? There were a few things. Affordable real estate. So, yeah, and certainly the schools. I had to have a great choice of schools for our girls.
So you started sending out resumes, telling people that you were hearing impaired. Where did you land from there? What happened?
So basically I got an interview at Cos Shoes, so I worked for him. He gave me the job, and yeah.
Cos Shoe, one of the local accountants.
Yes, sorry, yeah. So he gave me the job, and then from there I actually applied for a job at Skill Centred, which was it was payroll and creditors, and again I thought, well, I don't need to hear for that, so did all that good, and then I got the cochlear implant. So then, long story short here, but the CEO of Skill Centred at the time was the treasurer at Roadcraft. Roadcraft was not in a great place. I think it was nearly broke. And anyway, their executive director, they called him at the time, was leaving. So the treasurer of Roadcraft, being CEO at Skill Centred, orchestrated this without telling me, but he basically made me redundant and said to the board of Roadcraft, I know someone, and yes, she will be available. So, so I got put there. I got basically put at Roadcraft with no knowledge of the fact that it was there was lots of bad things going on at Roadcraft at that time. And
what sort of bad things?
Well, a $62,000 loss. So in the first financial year I was there, I was only there for 3 weeks. So we recorded a $62,000 loss. I got a letter from the Office of Fair Trade asking how we weren't trading, from ASIC, how we weren't trading insolvent. And I said, well, we probably are, but I'm new. I've got a plan. This is my plan. And they allowed us to keep trading. There were all sorts of issues with not the executive director that left before me, but the one before that. All sorts of issues. Things like tapping into the computer system and controlling the system from home and holding the website to ransom. Like, it was just ridiculous things going on there. The whole place was daggy. We had no work. It was looking at how the business is going to be in the future was hard. It was really, really challenging. So I thought when I did the roadcraft course, it just immediately struck me that the product is amazing. And unfortunately, it's really the optional extra, but it is amazing. And so when I did that driving course in my early 40s, it struck me as a grave injustice that I have never been taught this stuff before. I'd been relying on luck alone, and that's an injustice. So every driver needs the training that we do at roadcraft. And so I just knew, we had to save it.
So when you actually got the job, you went and did the course just so you knew what you were dealing with? Yes.
Yep. I needed to know the product, and it just had to be saved. Their product is amazing. So I sort of thought that maybe perhaps we could get a bit of the ambulance work, like the driver training for the Queensland Ambulance. So I put some feelers out to some people. So someone in Gympie who sent an email to someone in Maroochydore, and I was sort of waiting to hear back from them. And in the meantime, I got about 3 weeks after those emails, I got a phone call from a man called Dennis Jess. And he was from Queensland Ambulance in Brisbane. He was the Director of Education. And so he talked to me about whether maybe there's a possibility that roadcraft could do this driver training. And I'm thinking, this is just too amazing to be true. And he explained to me that Mount Cotton Training Services were closing down. They needed to put it somewhere. So what I sort of realised was that, hang on, he's not talking about a little piece of the pie. He's talking about the lot, like every paramedic in Queensland. And I remember when I worked for Mackenzie Intermodal in Bordertown, so Linton Mackenzie, I learnt from him. He always used to say to me that when you're asked to do something in business, you always say yes and you worry about how you're going to do it later. So this Dennis just said to me after explaining all this and, can you do this? He said, so the first question I have to ask you is are you interested? And I said yes.
Yeah.
And I'll worry about how I'm going to do it later. And so then he said to me, so you do realise why I'm ringing you in particular? And I said yes, because I emailed this person, they emailed that person. I'm assuming I've talked to you. And he said, no, I haven't heard from either of those ladies. He said, no, I was telling my cousin about my problem and I need to get this driver training somewhere. And she said, oh, you have to talk to Sharlene at Roadcraft. And I said, who's your cousin? And so his cousin is Kerry Eaton, who is the singing teacher of my girls. So, so that's how all that happened.
Synchronicity.
Yes. So Kerry Eaton is, she's involved in lots of things in the community. She's done lots of great work, and she's really supportive of young up-and-coming singers and performers and whatever, and she just does a lot of good work in the community. So sometimes she'll come to Roadcraft and ask us for some sponsorship or something, and we just bow and say, how much do you need? Because, we owe a commission on probably about $8 million worth of work since then. Oh, 9 million. We've been 9 years, yeah.
How excited were you when you've gone in, you've said, this is an amazing program, the Roadcraft program. How excited were you when you looked like getting the ambulance contract?
I was dancing in the office. I went out, so from my office, I went out into the main office, and I was dancing. I was just so happy that all the stars and moons and planets have aligned here, and this is our opportunity to, so not just save the roadcraft courses that they do for the public, and then obviously save more lives, but this is our opportunity also to show someone as big as Queensland Ambulance Service what we can do, little old roadcraft and little old Gympie. So it wasn't just an amazing coup for roadcraft, it's been an amazing coup for the whole region, because the injection into the local economy from that one government contract is invaluable. It's just amazing. Yeah, so then we had more employees, we have more suppliers, we have to feed these people, so we have caterers, local caterers do all that work. They have to stay somewhere, so they all stay at the Victory Hotel. All the ambulances get fueled in Gympie. We had to build a purpose-built fleet storage shed for the ambulances, because we've got the whole of Queensland Ambulance fleet training fleet in Gympie, housed at our shed. So someone had to build that shed. That was all local contractors, local suppliers. And then we had money to renovate the whole place. So that's all local contractors, local suppliers. And we've spent a lot of money in the community, as well as the ongoing stuff like the accommodation and the catering. So it's been fantastic.
When you took on the contract of Queensland Ambulance, what were their initial thoughts when they came in and saw what you were offering?
Yeah, well, I was really concerned. I was embarrassed when we received the head honchos from Queensland Ambulance at roadcraft. I was embarrassed, and me being me, it's a bit like the same thing with the hearing. Just be straight with people, And I said, okay, this is what you get now, but here's my plan. So if we can make some profits from this, well, then I intend to renovate this, and do this, and this. So Dennis Jess was one of the most amazing people on the face of the planet. Unfortunately, we lost him with cancer. But yeah, wonderful man. So very, very supportive of what we, had to offer at the time, and what our plans were. So, and then we just the whole team set about, okay, how do we do this? We got their curriculum in, which we sort of modified a little bit. We asked, could we make what we figured were improvements, and they allowed us to do that. So, yeah, we now have some amazing courses for Queensland Ambulance, and we've re-tendered a few times, and we keep winning the tender, and we continue to do our amazing work for the community, and saving more lives, and everyone's happy. It's fabulous.
So the whole ambulance contract, is it the mainstay of roadcraft these days?
So it's basically, we have a different business model, being a not-for-profit. So it's 81% of our income, which is has been very successful for us, but it's also, of course, very precarious, because if we were to lose that one client. So what we do is we use the profits from that contract to subsidise the other courses to help make them more affordable. So we don't make any money on the other 9%, which we get from high schools, primary schools, general public, and other corporate groups. So smaller corporate groups, like anyone can send their staff to us. So it's quite a precarious business model, but at the moment it continues to work really well for us. And everyone at roadcraft, the whole team, we know that we can never get complacent. We can't ever think that we've just got this contract in the bag. We work really hard to give them an exemplary, seamless service across the whole experience. It's our admin staff, our maintenance officer, always make sure that everything's mowed and looking amazing and everything's clean. And so it's the little things that make a big difference. Yeah, so we just intend to keep going like this. We're trying to make ourselves indispensable to them. The facility we have here, I don't think Gympie people realise what an amazing asset we have here, which is community owned in that driver training facility. So most organisations wouldn't be able to tender for that contract because they don't have what we have. And that was because of Rotary, Apex, 3 councils back then, and the community, that this facility was put there in the first place. So we are forever grateful to that group of people 41 years ago, and we just never take that for granted. And we're always sort of thinking with thanks of what those people did 41 years ago for this region. It's the envy of other they want what we have.
Have you looked at other government departments to try and expand your business model?
We would need longer than today to. So part of my work is advocating to government at all levels on roadcraft's relevance. So we've got some small wins, but unfortunately we are still very much the optional extra. So, most government's work, it's controlled by politicians. Politicians and the system we have in this country is that you only need to do a few good things for a couple of terms and then you've got your pension forever, so no one cares, really. I mean, that's very broad, of course. Some people do care, but that's broad. That's pretty much how politics works in this country. So instead of having a system where if you don't do a good job, that's it, you're not getting paid, which is in the private sector, or even a not-for-profit. So if I don't continue to do a good job as the CEO of Roadcraft, I can't expect my salary to be there because I'm going to get sacked and that's it, you're going to have no salary. It doesn't work like that with politicians. So that we need to have more incentive for them to do a great job and then continue to do a great job. So basically with road trauma, how it is now, people think, and this is a really sad fact, people assume that road trauma is a price we have to be prepared to pay for being a road user. We at Roadcraft don't believe that at all. We think effective education can mitigate all that. And you don't need to be involved in road trauma. You don't have to run that chance if you're educated properly. And that's why I said before I was relying on luck alone. And that's a terrible injustice.
Do you get laps behind the wheel?
Not now, not after the Roadcraft course. You see, I did all the time. So, So I'm advocating to the government all the time that this sort of thing needs to be available everywhere. We can't do that on our own. We need some help. We need support from everyone. And I say to them things like, road trauma is everybody's problem. So everyone needs to be part of the solution. So the solution for them is some big, really expensive TV campaign imploring people to drive safe. So basically what that's highlighting to people is why they need to drive safe. So they'll have, someone coming home for Christmas and they're hugging their family and they got home safe. So this is why you need to drive safe. Our argument is we think everyone already knows why. We've all been affected by road trauma. So the missing bit that the government doesn't do is they don't teach people how. So here it is, you've got to drive safe, drive safe, drive safe. So I didn't know how until I did the Roadcraft course. So that's the bit we do at Roadcraft. We teach how. So for a politician, if you're seen to be doing something about road trauma, tick the box, you've got the vote next time. That's the limit of their thinking. And it might not even be because they're a bad person, it's just because they're caught up in the system.
The whole party machine.
We need to change the system. So Sharlene alone is not going to change the system. But part of my work is to change the government's thinking. So do you think I'm going to succeed? Probably not. But that dent there, that's from beating our head against a brick wall, trying to make them see that this is truly what's required.
Talk us through the Roadcraft course. What's actually happening? Someone turns up, signs on the dotted line, says, yes, I want to learn. What are they learning?
What they're learning is so very different to a driving school. So a driving school teaches the monkey skills of driving and then how to pass the test, basically.
Do they have a place?
Absolutely. So driving schools, unfortunately, are limited to what the government is telling them to teach. So I'm not saying driving schools are bad. I'm saying the system is bad. So everyone has their place. So the parents supervising the young novice drivers, the driving schools, absolutely necessary. The missing bit is roadcraft. So if we could combine the three, we would have a much safer novice drivers. So novice drivers are overrepresented in the road toll. So that's what they need to keep them safe, those three together. And there are many good driving schools who work really closely with us, and they'll send their clients to roadcraft, which is great. So at roadcraft, we teach drivers to be more aware, more attentive and safer. So we're not teaching them this one makes a car go, this one makes a car stop, that sort of thing. We're teaching them to use their vision much more effectively to keep them safe. We're teaching them about time and space, which they're in control of. So stop blaming other drivers because you're in control of your time and space, and how time and space keeps me safe. And the strategies we use to do that, and understanding, of course, I'm not a driver educator. I don't have those qualifications. I manage the business. But this is what our amazing educators do. So they, each course is some theory and then straight out in the cars, and they do that practical on a purpose-built driver training facility on private property. So we can do a lot more things on there than driving schools or anybody else in a safe environment. So pretty much the foundation skills, it's theory and then practical, and then morning tea, come back in, another theory, practical. And we go through the 2-day course, and in all of what we're trying to do in that 2-day course is set the exercises up so that they choose themselves to want to adjust their attitude to risk acceptance. So if you've got an 18-year-old male, and all the research shows this, if you stand over them and go, you will drive safe, they'll go, yeah, right, no worries. So that doesn't work, that's why we don't do that. So we'll set them up in a series of exercise where there will be this light bulb moment, and they'll sort of go, oh shit.
How gratifying is it when you see that?
So when we see that, that's a little bit gratifying. And the educators will say, I saw the light bulb moment in that kid who came to us with a terrible attitude. I don't want to be here. Grandma's told me I have to come, and she's bought me this gift certificate. It's a waste of time. I don't want to be here. When they see that light bulb moment, that's really gratifying to them. And they drive away and they know they're a different driver. So I don't see that as much. What's gratifying to me, and this happens all the time, so Glenn, our operations manager, will come into my office and will say, the hairs on my arms are sticking up. I've just had one of those moments because a grandmother or someone has gone the phone again to him, and she said something like, I put all my grandkids through your course. I buy them all a gift certificate for their 17th birthday or whatever. So she said, my grandson is currently on the side of the road somewhere near the sunny coast. He's on the side of the road, shaken, and he's just needs to give himself some time because he's just in a bit of a tricky situation. But he's just rung me to say, Grandma, that course you put me through just saved my life. So the grandmother then said, I had to ring you to tell you this. So we get these calls, emails all the time.
That must be cool.
Oh, that is so very cool. So cool. Yeah. So that's why we do what we do. That's why we refuse to listen to the government. We refuse to listen to some of the research done by the academics. And remember, research you only find what you're looking for. So research sometimes is a bit hard. You've got to look at the whole big picture. So the government think the only research worth looking at is that done by academics. And we've done a lot of work in trying to make them understand that that's only one part of the research. So the other part of the research is listening to people like us who do this work on the ground, listening to those testimonials, reading our feedback, and having a look at the data we've got from surveying people that have been to roadcraft 5 years ago and that sort of thing. And so we are winning. We're winning on making them understand, that's good research as well. And you need to start taking this into account, because the academics will be very careful to do the research to find the answers that the politicians need. And if they're doing research that shows the politicians you need to spend, billions of dollars building roadcrafts all across Australia, they're going to go, we don't want to hear that. You see? So can you give us some research where we can go back to the public and say, right, we've installed more speed cameras to help keep you safe so that they'll vote for us again. Really, that's how the system works. So, I've been fairly vocal in trying to change that. And what you have to remember when you're doing anything like this, you need to know when to push. And then you need to know when to pull back and give them a little bit of time to absorb that. And now it's time to push again. So that's why I've been at roadcraft for 10 years and we've got that far. But we are winning. We're making some small wins. Roadcraft's reputation is fantastic now. Like, people want us at meetings. They want us at those round table, talk to us, tell us this. The politicians are inviting us to these sort of things. And what's really fantastic for us is we have amazing support from our mayor, our state rep, and our federal representative in government. So, we're good in Gympie on 3 levels of government, but they're only sort of one voice. But we do have amazing support. It's terrific.
You mentioned primary school kids, high school kids, even mature drivers. When's the best time to instill these driving techniques and attitudes? Okay,
so what we do is we like to get primary school kids there, any stage in their primary school, and that's a bike, bus and pedestrian safety course. But our educators are really clever, and what they're doing right at that young age, when they're riding around their push bikes on our purpose-built push bike facility, is they're teaching them to get their eyes up, and they're teaching them what to look for when, and how to respond to those hazards and things, and what they need to be aware of. So we're actually starting the teaching for driving way down when they're on the push bikes. So the best time to come to us then, and there's a couple of ways to look at this, we could get people before they form any bad habits. And unfortunately, parents are teaching kids bad habits. That's not because they're bad parents. It's because they haven't had the education. So you don't know what you don't know. So the best thing is to do is to understand as a parent, they shouldn't just be listening to me. I need to send them to roadcraft. So we say a good time is when they've done sort of 50 hours of their 100 hours on the learners. So they could have already got some bad habits by then. We can still get them out of that. Or school groups, they can come as a pre-learner. So that in a perfect world, they'll come in a school group as a pre-learner. So then they're not going to get the bad habits from mum and dad. Then they'll come again either after between 50 and 100 hours of their L's, or very soon after they get their P's. Because the first 3 weeks of their P's is statistically the most dangerous time of their driving career. And that's because our licensing system is flawed. So basically the test, the driving school's sort of teaching them to pass the test. They've passed the test. It's like a big green tick, you're good to go, mate, which is actually untrue. It's wrong, because that statistically is the most dangerous time. And that's because they haven't got those 2 sets of eyes anymore. They're out independent and they're inexperienced. So if we can get them very soon after their P's, or just before they get their P's, I'd say that's the best time.
Is it better these days, though? We do the 100 hours. I remember back when I was learning to drive and starting to drive, none of that was around.
Again, there's a couple of ways of looking at that. I remember when my 2 girls did the 100 hours, that the change in them between 0 and 50 hours was immense. The change in them between 50 and 100 is probably nothing, really. So I guess the 100 hours, where I personally think it's a good thing, is it's more of a rite of passage. So you must go through this. So they're not just taking their license for granted. You have to work hard. You have to do the right thing to get your license. The other thing is it's just 50 more hours of 2 sets of eyes in the car. So it's less chance at there, because the L's is actually their safest time, statistically.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because, and that is, it's really easy to see why, because there's just 2 sets of eyes looking for everything and looking for those hazards and that sort of thing. So I think it's probably a good thing. If they were to ever extend it any further, I think that'd just be stupid. And what we need to understand with extending it further is that might be fine for kids in the city, where you just take the bus or the train to work. So if we think about apprentices, working in Gympie and having to drive to work or drive to a building site, or, it's not going to work. So there are academics who'll say people shouldn't be getting their licence till they're 25.
Really?
And it's just ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. So instead, let's have a look at what people need to do their work, to be a contributor to their country, and then educate them to do that safely.
Because as you say, it's all about education.
It is all about education.
What's the big thing, though, that you will teach them? What's the big ticket item that you hope every person that leaves a roadcraft course that they take away?
Okay, so there's a few exercises which are absolutely mind-blowing, but I think the one single one for me is it's really, really sad that for most people, most drivers, the first time they ever get to test their reaction to an emergency braking situation is when their life depends on it. And they will get it very wrong.
Good call.
Because there's something called fixation. And it's in every human to fixate on the threat. It's a survival technique. So if you're doing bushwalk and there's a snake, you need to look at the snake so that you know where the snake is and get away from it or whatever. Driving, that is exactly the wrong thing to do. If you look at the threat, which is the semi that's come on your side of the road, you will look at it and you will steer towards it. That's called fixation. So, and this is what kids do in an emergency driving situation, emergency braking situation. They will fixate on the threat unless they're trained differently and have the opportunity to practice that. So here's the thing. So this is what driving schools can't do, because you can't do this on road. So on private property, purpose-built driver training facility, every single person that comes to roadcraft, whether pre-licensed, learner licensed, provisional license or open license, every one of them will do emergency braking situations and test their reaction. Okay, so you just fell to pieces, you got that completely wrong, and then they're given the strategies on what they should have done. So that to me is a grave injustice, that most times people test that is when the semi is coming towards them and they die. It's that simple.
Because I heard the story about Peter Brock, one of the most famous race drivers in the country, who was killed in the Targa, Tasmania, hit a tree, and that he, I think I heard through roadcraft, was fixated on the tree.
Yep. So, and like we say, and that's why we say at roadcraft, you're not sending your young driver to roadcraft to be a better driver. Peter Brock was an outstanding driver, but he's still dead. That's not what we're trying to teach them. We're giving them the strategies they need to be safer, more aware and more attentive, which can save their life.
From start to finish, what are they actually learning? You say the skid pan, the reaction, the braking. What else are they learning?
So they're learning, they do foundation techniques, first of all. So we're basically teaching them how to sit in the car, which people think is ridiculous until you learn why. And then we're teaching them so how to sit in the car, how to brace, left foot bracing, how they need to be holding their arms, so where their seat needs to be. All of these things, we call these foundation techniques, because it puts you in the best situation to drive safely before we even teach them anything else. So a lot of people, that's a profound change. Some people have never left foot braced. Some people have driven with straight arms with the seat laid back their whole life. They might come to us as a 45-year-old and go, oh, I can't change that. by the end of the course, they're happy to change that because they understand why. So then we put them through, we'll do slalom, slalom is about, I guess, learning to trust your peripheral vision, because we don't have much vision up. We've got good peripheral vision, but we tend to look at the front of the bonnet. So the slalom is about getting people's eyes up, seeing more, seeing further ahead. And we'll certainly do things like straight line braking, and then brake and evade, and then we can also have optional wet, skid pan, all those sorts of things. And we go on and on and on, and we do this whole series of exercises, and remembering I'm not a driver trainer. So, and then what we do is it culminates in a town drive, and we do a commentary drive. So to me, the commentary drive is what cements all of the 2-day learning, and commentary drive is great because you can always refresh that. Anytime you can do a commentary drive while you're driving. And what that involves is verbalising everything that you're scanning, checking, seeing, doing, and it cements the learning. So as you're driving, you'll actually be voicing what's going through your head.
So most people, are they too blasé when they drive?
Yeah, and most people drive far too close. So we have a series of exercises that shows them. So in this emergency braking situation here, where you were 1 second behind, we show them where your car will stop when this car in front of you brakes. So then we show them what happens now when you're 3 seconds behind, and it turns into not even an emergency braking situation. Now it's just a brake.
But it's frustrating though. You leave that amount of time, the 2, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, whatever, and someone will race into the gap.
Yep, every time. What's
the strategy to deal with that?
Okay, so I've heard one of our senior educators say this to a group of kids. I loved it. This is how he put it. And he's a maths teacher. And so he said, you always, they do that, don't they? And it annoys you. So you've got your good 3 seconds when it comes in. So he said, so now you're only 2 seconds behind that car. So you've got to get back a second. And then you're 3 seconds behind, someone does it again. So you get back a second or 2 seconds or whatever. So he says, it's annoying, isn't it? So then he says, now what if that happened 30 times on your trip from Gympie to Brisbane? 30 times. It's really annoying, isn't it? So let's think about that. So each time you've adjusted, you've lost a second. So how much time have you lost between Gympie and Brisbane? Hang on, 1 times 30 seconds. That can't be right. Hang on. I'm a maths teacher. 1 times 30. No, it's 30 seconds. So in that whole trip, you've lost 30 seconds to keep yourself safe. So he said, can you now see that people are, that they're risking their life to save a second? And when he puts it like that, you think, oh my God, why am I risking my life to save a second? It's just a second. 30 times that happens, it's just 30 seconds. So leave 5 minutes earlier. Keep yourself safe.
What about with ambulance drivers, though, that have got a lot of extra pressure because they need to make a destination sometimes quicker than most? Of course, lights, sirens and that, and they've got to try and get somewhere. How is that incorporated?
So basically the training at the ambulance, a lot of that is around there is no point you dying on the way to that person who's having a heart attack, because you're not going to be able to help him then. And then when you've got the person who's got a broken neck because they've just fallen down a cliff or something, is there any point you driving like a madman to get to the hospital, or are we more considering the patient ride? So a lot of what they teach the ambulance, it's not about fast and furious. It's actually the opposite. So if they do code 1 too fast, they fail. So they can't do code 1 fast and smooth. So it's very much about safe driving, getting to your patient safely, and then getting your patient to the hospital safely. So it's quite different, I believe, to police driver training. So police driving could, I guess, be called offensive driving, whereas this is defensive driving. So yeah, it's very much along the same thinking.
What do ambulance drivers say once they've done the course and they've had their thinking changed? What's their general reaction to the roadcraft course?
So, mates, I read all feedback. We give everyone a feedback form, and I read every feedback form that comes through roadcraft. So consistently, it is, wow, I cannot believe what I've learnt. I cannot believe how relevant this is to my everyday driving. So I will be also instilling these things in my normal everyday driving in my own car. Definitely this is going to make me a much safer ambulance driver, and absolutely my family is coming here. Normally that's about what you get.
You're passionate about it. It must excite you to go to work each day.
It does. So I clocked up 10 years at roadcraft in June, and I've actually said that I've never had long service leave before because I've always gotten bored. I've always left jobs because I've run out of challenges. And so with roadcraft, I'm not bored, and I don't think I'm ever going to get bored. I love the work, I love the organisation, I love the people I work with, they're all terrific. We all have that passion. The board, the volunteer board are all terrific and really supportive. So, and my work is exciting, and it just doesn't stop changing. So there's always something new to do, or now thinking of expansion.
That's what I was going to ask you was, over the next 5 years, what are you hoping to achieve?
So we're hoping to absolutely increase what we do with our advocacy work. We want to be, and I think we're winning, we're nearly there. We want to be the voice of reason in preventing road trauma. We want to be labelled as the experts, not those academics. And we have worked with some amazing academics, but we've worked with some that have just got no bloody idea. It's so frustrating. So, we're finding those good academics, and we're reaching out more to the government. And Transport and Main Roads, they have really improved on how they listen to people out there now. They're doing some really good work, which is really exciting. And the other thing, we want to improve that area. And the other thing is we want to look at expanding further south. So reaching into that probably a bigger, densely populated areas in North Brisbane and Southern Sunshine Coast, and maybe a bit higher socio-economic, who might have a bit more money just to throw at roadcraft courses. We're already doing work in central Queensland, so now we want to go the opposite direction. So that's the next 5 years, and then after that, who knows? That's the plan so far.
Will you be setting up bases in these areas, or just courses and turning up? And how do you do it, though, when you don't have the purpose-built facility like there is here at the home base? So
we don't do it. That's a simple answer. So in Banarabi, in central Queensland, they built a facility, the Banarabi Driver Education Facility, which is another not-for-profit association. So they actually then reached out to us to help them with the course. So to their credit, they realised that the facility isn't worth a cracker without the people and the curriculum, which I tell the board all the time. And we have a brand new facility here, by the way. Brand new, built by Transport and Main Roads, because the highway went straight over top of our old one. So we have an amazing facility that's even better than what it was before here in Gympie, thanks to the Section D of the new highway.
So what was new in the new facility that you've built? Because the one that you used to have was pretty special.
It was, I know. So we had one big skid pan and feeder road, and then another smaller one. So we called them VDA 1 and VDA 2, being Vehicle Dynamics Area. Because skid pan's a dirty word for the government, so we don't use that. It's posh, it's Vehicle Dynamics Area. So VDA, yeah, we're posher. So we had VDA 1 and VDA 2, and we could run 2 courses concurrently. So what we've come up with Main Roads, who again have been fantastic, so their contractors have built us a new facility with one massive skid pan and then lots of feeder roads. So, and roadcraft is doing a co-contribution, like we're paying for some of it. And so now we'll be able to run 3 courses concurrently. And we've just had handover of that whole new thing. So it's been done in sections. So we've now got the whole that all they've got to do is put the lawn in the middle, I think, and we're all done. So we've been using it for a couple of weeks. So what we plan to do at the Sunshine Coast is we're looking at a few options. Maybe if we could get a lease of some government land like we do here in Gympie, that would be great. That's really hard to come by, but maybe some pipelines, some things in the pipeline there. That would be good. And then maybe some RDA funding to fund 50% of the infrastructure, and we have the money in the bank to do the other. The other option is we can lease Lakeside, so actually run some courses out of that. So we're looking at a few different options.
So if someone wants to find out about roadcraft, and it sounds like everyone should be finding out about it.
Thank you, yes.
How do they do it?
Okay, so roadcraft.org.au, a website. We've got some great videos and lots of information. But we are a bit loath to go down the just look on the website. You can certainly book a course on the website, but we love to talk to people. So we're old-fashioned like that. So if you love getting on a website and booking a course online, do it. If you want to talk to us, please pick up the phone, give us a call, or call into the office.
Do you get many people calling in just to check it out?
Some people, yep, they'll come with their, young son or something and say, okay, I just wanted to come with my son, have a talk about, and we're always happy to do that, always happy to give that time. But most people ring, and certainly more people are booking online, but sometimes they've got questions, and I hate that. I hate the way society is going, that you can only talk to a computer. So if you've got a question, ring us. We're very happy to spend the time to talk to you about any concerns you've got, or, because some young people also have some, maybe have a slight disability. They might have anxiety or something like that. So we're very happy to talk to you about how we can help with that.
It's so exciting to see your passion for it. And it must be a real pleasure to, as you say, 10 years getting up and going, it's not really work.
No, it's not work, no. I love getting out of bed in the morning and going to work. And like I said, the people there, they're all great people. We all get along pretty well. It's a really nice place to work, yeah. And because I get to do lots of variety of things and, even this sort of thing and some of the marketing things we do, sometimes I've got to be in front of the camera, as you know, and do a video, which is out of my comfort zone, but it's, you've got to do it because it's for the good of good. If we can save a few more lives, I'll do it.
Sharlene Makin, thanks for joining us. Over the Bonnet.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.